I've never seen a congressional testimony that's had more emotional impact than this. We all sort of on some level knew what these guys were going to say, and yet it was wrenching to sit through and to witness. And I don't often, I just, I never felt as humbled watching congressional testimony by anybody, I think, in the time that I've been in this job. And so humbled and so grateful for these people's service and all of these men describing what they went through. And in the middle of that humility, that sense of overwhelming humility watching this, I was struck on the other side of that with this incredibly powerful sense of just what kind of moral depravity you must be in the grips of to engage in the kind of whitewashing and memory holing and attempted gaslighting that we've seen on the part of so many Republicans, not just the former president of the United States, but so many in that party. It's not just that they're doing something that's evil and insidious and dangerous for the country. It's all of those things. But I just can't imagine what kind of a monster you would have to be to watch those men, listen to that testimony, know the truth, hear them talk about it, and then stand up and say that the things they said were not true, the things that it was all a day at the beach, that it was all a picnic, it was all a vacation. It was, in some Donald Trump's recent tellings, it was a moment of glory. These were people trying to do the right thing, these rioters, these mob members, these insurrectionists, these terrorists. I rarely, I mean, just the starkness of the kind of moral monstrosity that's required to take that position in the face of that kind of testimony, it does truly boggle my mind.
Yeah, I mean, look, Frank, I had the same feeling that John is articulating. I had this feeling, though, that there are few markers to how far underground we are. I used to ask, where's the bottom? Where's the bottom with the Trump presidency? We're now so far underground that we don't often get such a stark reminder of how far up the surface is. And I think what these officers with no decipherable partisan affiliation revealed is that the country's politics are so far gone that a terrorist attack, in the words of one of those officers, by Donald Trump supporters, in the words of all of the officers and the insurrectionists themselves, 500 of whom have been charged now with the crimes they committed that day, have been erased by the two most powerful Republicans in the country, Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy. And I wonder, watching it today, what you thought the chances are of eroding some of the calcified lies that have been bought by the ex-president's supporters with this truth bomb.
There is hope. I'm hopeful, but I have to tell you, while I pray that we're nearing the bottom, I don't think we're there yet. And you only need to look at the social media reactions to some people in Congress who are now deciding to blame everything on Nancy Pelosi. This whole thing that happened on January 6th, in their words, seems to be Nancy Pelosi's fault. There's a right-wing cable TV host who is attacking those police officers today, saying they're not fit for duty. Are we at the bottom yet? Apparently not. I hope that at the bottom, when we get there, we'll find some truth, because I don't know how an American absorbs today's testimony and doesn't feel moved to two emotions at least. One, sorrow about what happened to this country on January 6th, and secondly, anger about what happened in this nation on January 6th. I don't know, of course, how an American acts out the violence that was portrayed today on January 6th to violently overthrow our government either. So you've got me there. It's a delusion and a deception that has taken hold in the minds of so many Americans that they will not even see the truth if they even bother to listen or watch today's testimony. And that, of course, is in doubt as well. One of the things that struck me, Nicole, so many things struck me today as we see all of this in one place today, but is the racial aspect of this. I know people don't want to hear this on the far right and the folks who did this terrible terrorist act, but even my law enforcement sources still tell me the tattoos, the photos of the tattoos they were taking off the people that they're arresting still today, the shirts and slogans, the social media streams and threads of these people are consistently reflecting white nationalism, hate-based violence. That's where so many of these people are coming from. That's what Officer Dunn portrayed for us today.
Well, let's stay with this, Frank. Let me show you some more of what Officer Dunn testified to that gets to something we've talked about a lot. All four of us have talked about, which is what they knew ahead of time. I mean, I've interviewed a half a dozen members of Congress who said everything from I wore running shoes because I was afraid I might need to run, to I told my spouse where my will was, to I forbade my staff from coming into the Capitol that day. There was a lot of knowledge ahead of time that this was could be very violent. But what Officer Dunn said about the insurrectionists themselves struck me as some of them were familiar faces. Watch.
Around 10:56 a.m., I received a text message from a friend forwarding a screenshot of what appeared to be the potential plan of action, very different from a peaceful demonstration. The screenshot bore the caption, January 6th, Rally Point, Lincoln Park, and said the objective was the Capitol. It said, amongst other things, that Trump has given us marching orders and to keep your guns hidden. It urged people to bring your trauma kits and gas masks, to link up early in the day in 6 to 12-man teams. It indicated there would be time to arm up. Seeing that message caused me concern. To be sure, looking back now, it seemed to foreshadow what happened later. At the time, though, we had not received any threat warnings from our chain of command. I had no independent reason to believe that violence was headed our way.
Frank, why, with all of that in the air, why wasn't he warned that violence was in the air?
Yeah, in many ways, the entire system failed those police officers and thereby failed America in terms of our security and stability that day. And I'm not content with the mere administrative responses we're getting so far, which means, you know, it took a long time to get this in place. You know, we're not allowed to pass this kind of intelligence around or even investigate domestically from an intelligence gathering perspective Americans who might be engaged in rhetoric. We can't separate rhetoric from planning. We can't separate aspirational from planning and execution. I'm tired of hearing that. And so one of the key witnesses for this committee has got to be Christopher Wray. From the FBI, and the standard answers that say, you know, we did what we could. We passed a few memos around. We pressed send on a bulletin or an email from the Norfolk office, and then we just watched on TV. That does not cut it anymore. What we need in terms of answers is, where do we go from here to fix this? What rules need to change right now to allow the FBI to get out in front of this? Because we're learning all about these people, these almost 600 people that have been arrested. Why? Because the crisis has occurred, which permits them legally now to go backwards and see what they were all about. That can't happen again, and we can do it while preserving civil liberties. I'm also getting really tired of people saying, well, you know, Frank, be careful, the civil liberties. Yes, of course we have to preserve civil liberties, but don't let the concern stop us from even having the discussion. We can do it. We did it after 9/11. We can do it if we do it together. There's the rub, but we need answers about the degree to which politics played into decision-making on intelligence gathering. We need to know how the rules need to change. We need to know whether it seems like we're totally unable to see ourselves as the threat that we pose to our own country. We need answers, and I'm hopeful that this committee is going to get there.
David